We're clicking. We're going live.
We're live.
Play the intro.
Welcome to your awakening. Please take pause as your reality is adjusted.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to another edition of Sol Excalibre. Some interesting recommendations from the YouTube. Yes, I think I'm going to start by stopping the screen share, and I'll sing a little verse for you, similar to what I did the other week. If I can get the rhythm going in my head. We're leaving together, only 6 feet apart. We're wearing masks all of the time, but I can still smell your fart. I guess that I'll see your face again when they say we're allowed.
We're allowed.
When will we choose to be free again? It's the final lockdown. Everybody get rocking. Thanks for the backing vocals.
Oh, I thought there was another verse. No,
I only come up with one verse so far. It's taken me all week of that rattling around in my head to actually
I like it.
figure it out and put it down.
Well done.
I was thinking of posting it off to Media Bear and saying to them, like, do you want to do a cover version of this? Like, you know, they do their satire songs.
That'd be good.
Yeah, I've thought of a few, like the one I mentioned the other week, the COVID killed the influenza, done to the Buggles video killed the radio star. That's another possibility.
Have you guys seen that Corona? It's a Corona Christmas album.
No, but I can believe it.
God, it's brilliant. You have to play it. Have a look. It's so fun. It's funny.
Maybe as we go along, I'll have a read through it because I got a few links I want to go through.
Okay.
Hello to everyone in the chat room as well. Thanks for joining in. If I practice it more, build the strength back up again in my larynx, I might be able to sing it a bit better. Or if I record it, I can, do a few takes and get it right. But thanks for, allowing my terrible singing for 2 minutes. There's various people in the chat room already. I'll do a quick shout out like we usually do as we go down. It is this Moon Day evening, the 7th of the 12th. Welcome to December. You're now in December. Remember the lockdown was supposed to end on the 2nd of December. It's funny that, wasn't it? Just 2 weeks. 2 weeks. It always makes me think of Total Recall when I say that. 2 weeks. Anyway, Dan Conzior. Hello, mate. Or Dan Conzior, sorry. That picture, it's me at the grocery store. Yeah, I know what you mean, right? The thumbnail image with everyone wearing masks. Tazzy, hello. Thanks for joining in the chat. And Cro-Magnon, hello. Lynn Anderson, hello. Glad you're feeling better. And One Must, hello. Yes, indeed, the carnival is in full steam at the moment. What's up? Hello. Staying sane, trying to. That's partly why I've been encouraging people to sing, even if it's to yourself, because it's an outlet. You could sing something hard and aggressive, sing some good punk songs or some heavy metal stuff and just let the anger out in that way. So safe, hello. And Paula, hello. Check my inbox. Okay, I will do in a sec after I finish scrolling down the chat room. I sings the news, hello. And Just Space Goat Farts, hello. I can still smell your fart even with the mask on. You still smell those goat farts. Lowlands Pete, hello mate. I'm trying to do this as quickly as I can without missing anyone out. Jam Noise is in the chat room with us. And Earache, hello. Yeah, the lunatics have taken over the asylum. That's a brilliant classic song. Recommend it if you haven't heard it, by the Specials. Canal, hello, hello. Dinny Car, hello. Stop laughing at my singing, mate. At least I was singing. Original Underground, hello, mate. And Stewie, hello. Thanks for joining in. Side Fish, hello, hello. I'll have a fish on the side. Or is that you're like fishing while you're going doing something else? You do a bit of side fishing. Patrick Nay, hello. Thanks for the links, mate. If I remember, there's one I was going to mention. I'll have to get the link open in a minute. Right, I think I've managed to scroll all the way down the chat room. Hello, thanks for joining us in the chat room. Thanks to everybody else who's just tuning in to watch or listen or whatever. You consume this media how you choose to. Right. Maybe I should do what I normally do when I start these podcasts. Like I said in the past recently, with this season, I'm not doing the kind of monologue thing anymore. There's a few things I want to mention, but we're just going to chat as we go along. But the first thing to sort of start it off in the subtitle, £120,000 a soul. Maybe say it quick. Maybe it will make sense while I wrote it that way. £120,000 a soul. That is the compensation being offered to anyone that suffers or can prove. Remember that you've got to prove it in a private court, not in a acknowledged judicial process, but you have to prove that you have suffered damage from the vaccine that they're currently, maybe I should say the vaccine. I don't think they're really that bothered about saying the word vaccine, to be honest. But
just linking stuff they don't like.
Yeah, linking possibilities, which we'll get into as we go along. But the £120,000 is what they're offering if you can prove that you're damaged by this new vaccine. The potential of what could go wrong could be lifelong for people if they suffer some kind of ill effect from it. So how does £120,000 compensate somebody for potentially a lifelong disability or life of suffering?
Or making you sterile.
Exactly. I'll dig the photo image out of that. Thanks to Dino for grabbing a picture of it. Yeah, that's why I thought I'd put it as £120,000 a soul, because it's a, you know what I'm like. I like to put multiple layers of meaning into stuff if I can, because I'm just annoyed like that. It is, I feel, accurate in the description or in the metaphor of being a spiritual war, that what they're offering you, the value of your soul, of affecting your life in such a manner, is £120,000. That's what they quantify you as being worth. And deliberately, I worded it the way I did, so it's like, asshole. That's what you're offering us. You're a fucking asshole. Fuck you.
Well, it makes me think, because any product you sell, anything you sell, anything, if you weren't allowed to be sued for your product causing damage or harm, which is what they have as well, they're not allowed to be sued, and they offer up this other compensation thing, which they've had running for quite a while now, and you cannot sue the vaccine company directly by law, I think it is now.
I think some of the influencers and the celebrities should be sued. The ones that are up front, go and have it. You know, they should be liable as well. They don't know what's going to happen when people take it, but they're up front saying, "I'm going to take it. I'm going to say you should take it."
Well, if you bought a tin of beans and it poisoned you, you'd sue Heinz or whoever it was who produced that product. You can't do it with a vaccine.
But then they're telling you have to. Sorry, Peter, go on.
No, go on.
They were saying that Pete Cookie was saying that you have to prove that the vaccine has injured you in some way. But if you were okay before and then problems after have come along, it's pretty obvious what's caused it. There's the
you might think that, but that's not the way it works in their court process. There's a lot of people that never successfully get compensation for vaccine damage. And the vaccine damage court system has been running for a long time, for multiple decades, and most people don't even know it exists. Yeah, and they don't realise this is another element that the media is quite happily staying stum about. Most people don't realise that when they're talking about that compensation, they're talking about it's coming out of the taxpayer's purse. It doesn't come from those pharmaceutical companies. So not only are they indemnified from any liability of being sued on a personal basis, that's the indemnification they've been given. Yeah, they get out of jail free card, basically. But also, even if somebody applies to that compensation fund, they have to prove that they've been damaged. And if they successfully do, they're paid out of the taxpayer's purse. So people are paying themselves for being damaged by a third-party company.
That's just, how have we let ourselves get here?
Very dark, isn't it? It's very,
Yeah.
it's very, it's evil. And
you think about that kind of vampiric process of them sapping people's energy and using it as a weapon against them. That's a little circle that they've created. So, oh, we damaged you, did you? Oh, well, you'll have to pay yourself. And your children will be paying the debt for the money that we just handed over to you.
Yes, and you mentioned this vaccine ID card that they're throwing around at the moment.
Well, look, let me just mention this, Matt, and then I'll swap the screen share over. As I said, thanks for Dean for catching this screenshot. If you notice, hang on, if I put my cursor actually over the image, I can point at it then. That bottom bit that's highlighted, this current vaccine that they're rushing out to the British public, it is currently unknown whether it will have an impact on fertility.
Yeah, I put that link up. Is that the NHS practitioners guideline thing?
Yeah, I think that's a screenshot from that document. Yeah.
Well, there's a eugenicist agenda, if ever there was one.
And in that document, it also says there's been no test done to see if this new vaccine will you can take it with any other medication.
Yeah,
they've done no tests on that. And the fertility thing, they said that you could be made fertile. It's just there. It's all there.
And it could have long-term, slow effects in that fertility sense. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be instantly sterile. That's a possibility, but it could potentially affect the development. So if and when they get to the stage of insisting that children have to give it as part of the usual vaccine regime that they're given, that could potentially affect their lifelong fertility. It might slowly build up, but they will lose their fertility.
It says in that paper, after having the vaccination, don't get pregnant for 2 months.
Yeah.
Said that.
So that's a eugenicist dream. And who is one of the major contributors to this whole situation, which we've banged on about all year long? It's that Billy Bob Gates. Yeah, and it doesn't take a whole lot of research. It's not exactly hidden information, but you can quite easily trace a route from him to the tradition of eugenicism. So, yeah, it's a conspiracy theory because nobody's been able to produce any documented proof to confirm this. But over years of his commentary and his actions and things that he's pushed forward, things that he's donated money to, I'm more inclined to say, yeah, he actively wants this to happen because he actively wants the generations to be sterilized or more infertile than they have ever been. This screen share just for a Daily Mail article from, I think it is today. Yeah, it is. I thought it was yesterday. About the ID cards, which of course this is one of the main sort of news bites that's doing the rounds at the moment. I'll just read the headline out in case people can't see the screen or are not looking at the screen. The Daily Mail, Britons will fake COVID IDs just to live a normal life. Fears new vaccination cards may spark black market trade if pubs and restaurants demand to see them, but Number 10 insists they are simply a reminder for holders to get second jab.
Oh my God.
As I've heard other people point out today, I think I was listening to Carl Vernon earlier, and he's saying if you actually look at the images they're showing of the card, it is just an appointment card. It's like what you'd get for a doctor's appointment, but they're referencing it as if it's an ID card. and they are just suggesting, as the government does, they're suggesting that pubs and restaurants and the trades will ask to see that ID card to prove that you've had the vaccine jab. The Welsh government, as we mentioned on Wednesday, they're talking about actively demanding to see vaccination proof to even cross the border.
Yeah.
Remember what we've been saying for years now about how they would set up infrastructure to prevent you moving around. It begins on a national scale. Oh, we've got to close the borders because people are coming in who might be infected. But eventually it becomes regional. Those borders are now regional. Eventually they'll become neighborhood boundaries. That's the intention. You're not allowed to go into whatever postcode because your pass doesn't allow you to enter that area. Slowly sectioning off the populace so that you're less likely to be able to pass information between each other or form groups or take any kind of action against what's being done around you. No, you're all separated and pushed back into your little boxes.
But they're supposed to be separating us if we're in different tiers and everything like that. I haven't heard any of that.
No, not me.
You're supposed to not go to another tier and you can't mix with this tier. And it's just everyone's moving around. Like, who's policing that?
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Exactly.
They know it is. So.
Yeah.
They're relying on fear and self-policing. And what I'll refer to as the Stanford effect. The Stanford prison experiment where some people will relish and revel in their newfound prefect role, where because they are following the rules and you're not, they find great outlet in oppressing you and insisting that you follow the rules. Conform, you will be assimilated. But one of the main reasons I wanted to mention this, I'll mention this quick as well. I watched news video clips of the Nottingham Christmas market.
Oh, the Goose Fair, is it? Yeah.
It's been shut down now today. Shut down for the rest of the year. In other words, no longer allowed to trade because somebody complained that there was too many people there. It was too crowded. There's risk involved. Therefore, they were worried, and the council went, "Oh, right, shut it down. Then no more trading."
Yeah. Well,
so the general populace proved that for a lot of people, they weren't interested in the bullshit rules. They weren't afraid. They were quite able and capable to decide for themselves their risk they're willing to take on if there even is a risk. And they went out to go to that traditional market, and they've now all been told, "No, you evil, dusty people, go home."
It was weird on Saturday when I jumped online for a bit. I'd look on YouTube, and there was about 4 or 5 simultaneous live streams coming from various parts of the country and also, France and that, and just watching all of in Germany and the UK. Yeah. So all these people out, all these people, I've seen so many of them. And in Manchester on Sunday as well, there was a protest. They got together. I didn't see most of that one, but there was a good turnout for that as well. And more people are doing this, aren't they? And there wasn't didn't seem to be any trouble in the ones in Birmingham and Manchester. It seems that London's more severe with their policing. It seems to be really heavy-handed down there. But there wasn't much, it seemed, up happening. And even I think Piers Corbyn spoke, and I don't think he got arrested. So,
I've got links for them, and I'll share them in the chat in a bit.
I've noticed a couple of places in Europe where they had protests and things happened. They then had really bad flooding. So I don't know if they're punishing parts of Europe with the geoengineering as well.
They could be.
They have been doing that.
There's been a lot of that this year. Look at all the fires in America and Australia, There
was just flooding in Italy a couple of days ago. Quite bad.
Yeah. But one other thing I wanted to mention about this vaccine ID card, or even just the concept of the ID card, I've banged on multiple times about, you can't have a passport to be free. It just doesn't make any sense. But in particular, in relevance to this vaccine ID card, or the concept of this health passport or whatever, this current vaccine, they themselves have admitted, what's his name, Van Tam, the midget Van Damme, who has to have a little box to stand on when he does his presentation with Bojo. He himself said the vaccine cannot be guaranteed to give you immunity.
Yeah.
It also they don't know if it will stop or prevent transmission. So even if you've had the vaccine, you could, one, still be infected and be a carrier, and two, be transmitting it, constantly shedding. So if you're walking around with this little ID card that says you've been vaccinated and you're therefore allowed to come in the restaurant, do whatever you want, mate. Now you can live just like you normally used to, but you're constantly shedding the virus. So
well, you might as well.
How does that ID card just do what does it prove? It doesn't prove anything. You're just still a spreader.
You're complying and you're...
Exactly.
You've got your papers now.
You've paid the tax. That is what is being levied. It's his ridiculous. I sort of talked about this first ages ago, months ago. You know, that concept of you paying a dues to the authority, you know, like a religious payment, a religious tithe. Yeah. And the tithe in this respect is not necessarily a monetary value, even though people are actively paying money to have a test because for whatever reason they need a test result. Yeah. It's not really about the monetary cost, which is part of the plan, but it's also the fact that you're paying a tithe with your sovereignty. You know, in the cliched metaphor, you bending the knee, you're saying, yes, here you go, here's my crown. That's my payment. My tax is to hand over my crown to you.
You may as well have stood up and said, we don't know if it works.
Basically.
Really.
I have, though, basically, haven't I? I have, really. That's what I said.
But the passport, the ID card, to me, is just like, hang on, you're telling us it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that. Therefore, what does the card represent? Nothing other than, as you say, it represents that you've acquiesced. Yeah. You've agreed, you've obeyed, you've bent the knee. That's it. Look, I'm a good boy. I've got me passport.
You're perpetuating the lie. Yeah. And you're going to take the knee now, as in you're going to take the needle.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah.
I kept thinking of that every time I heard them say it. And then we got to this point and I thought, hang on a minute, have they been messing with, take the knee? And now it's like, you're going to take the needle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do think it is about breaching that last line of sovereignty.
Yeah.
In our experience of this reality, your primary property is your body, your bodily integrity. Whether you believe in a separate spirit and things like it doesn't matter. So your physical presence here is your primary property. It's yours. You do with it as you choose. And somebody intervening or invading that is crossing that final boundary, which is represented by your crown of sovereignty, therefore the corona. And I've talked about that kind of connection at length.
Our mind they want. I see it.
It's a psychic attack. I said that right from the get-go. Yeah. They're working on your head.
They want inside your final fortifications, your bodily integrity, your sovereignty. They want you to hand it over and just become an automaton, basically.
Yeah.
In a bit of a tangent, and it might not necessarily make sense to everyone, but I wanted to mention this because it was rattling around in my head for a few days, and I was thinking, I got to bring that up again. I know I've talked about it years ago, but it's when we were talking about AI and the potential for machine sentience, things like that. What do they mean when they say AI? There's different sort of levels or categories of AI. It's not the sort of simple cliche that most people have been taught via sci-fi and media, where AI means a truly self-sentient machine being that thinks for itself and makes its own decisions, and potentially like Skynet is going to want to eradicate us all and things like that. But this is I'll put a link in the side chat. This is just a Wikipedia link. Wikipedia, yes, but it's a starting point for an experiment to do with AI called the Chinese Room experiment. this has been in my head for a while, and I know I've spoken about this kind of thing before, but as I say, we were talking primarily about what do you mean when you say AI? Are you talking a true sentence, blah, blah, blah. But I think this is a good correlation, a good metaphor for what I would call the media-controlled mind. In other words, somebody who is the go along to get along, the herd mentality, the sheeple in that kind of unfortunate derogatory fashion, yeah? And I've talked about this as well, the correlation between that kind of mindset and the definition and diagnosis of a sociopath. Yeah, we live in a sociopathic society where the majority of the population go along to get along, which is what a sociopath does. Yeah, they say what they think is required to gain a benefit for themselves within the current situation. Yeah, and that benefit could be as simple as staying alive. Yeah, rather than having a principle that they work from, they just say what they think the environment needs from them. And that Chinese room, in a convoluted way, represents exactly that. The experiment is based on the idea of if you had a computer that you fed Chinese symbols into, but you yourself are not a Chinese language speaker, but the algorithm in the computer is able to look at the symbols of the Chinese language and respond with appropriate symbols based on an algorithmic sequential program. But he says, as he describes it, he says that would not prove true sentience. That would not prove that the computer is thinking and thinking. Exactly. It's not thinking for itself. It's just giving a response to what is required of it. And you compare that, or use that kind of perception to what I'm describing as the media-controlled mind. A lot of what we're seeing at the moment is, unfortunately, people who, for various reasons, fear. They just need to get to work so that they earn money to feed their family, pay their bills, etc. So they just do what's asked of them. They're not really thinking about it. There is no true comprehension there of what's being presented to them. They just respond in a way that they think is required of them.
And that's what silly.
Exactly. That's where you get that kind of bend the knee attitude or put the face nappy on, etc. As I say, I know it's a little bit of a kind of convoluted or extended connection, but I think it's relevant when trying to empathize with somebody who will respond to you in a way that they're just regurgitating mainstream media shit, basically. They haven't really thought about it for themselves. They're not really comprehending what's been presented to them. Like, I made a very simple, logical observation about that ID card based on the information they were giving me. The vaccine doesn't guarantee immunity and it doesn't guarantee stopping transmission. So therefore, what does the card represent? Nothing in relation to the virus or the illness, supposedly. That's just a simple logical observation. But for most people, they don't apply that use of their own mind. They just respond in a fashion that they think is required of them by the environment. The environment is that oppression of the state system.
They've just stopped thinking at all. They'll just go and get their car. They'll just not thinking at all. That's the frightening thing about it. And people saying we need the vaccine, but it's just Do you remember
when the government said earlier in the year that, and Billy Bob himself repeated this a lot, we can only go back to normal when we've got the vaccine?
Yeah,
that's an implied promise. Not directly stated, but it's an implied promise that once we have the vaccine, life will return to normal.
Yeah.
Now, when you say that, when he was saying that to people back at the beginning of the year, of course, everybody thought normal meant, like it was back in 2019. Yeah, okay, yeah, as soon as we got the vaccine, we're back to normal. And now they're saying, no, that's not the way it's going to be.
It's never going to be normal.
And they've never, well, not as far as I know, but of course I'm not exactly monitoring every news feed. But as far as I know, the government has not made any statement along the lines of, well, yeah, we did say that back in March, but now because of the rollout, the way it is, we're not certain. So therefore, we're sorry we made that kind of implication, but now we've got to do it this way. They haven't said anything like that. They just said it will be this way. That's what Van Tam said, we're rolling out the vaccine, therefore it will be this way. You will still be required to be under lockdown, basically.
They just
The
keep
final
going.
lockdown.
It's just dangling.
Yeah.
Dangling that carrot.
Carrots to keep people running along the cliff edge.
And then beat you with a stick.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You don't want to be the odd one out, do you? You don't want to be the granny killer. And now, on that point, and I've got to do it because it's just, I don't feel...
Can I just say quickly, though, you can see the people that wear masks that shouldn't be wearing them because they kind of looks really frightened and they don't really want to be wearing it. But the others that stare at you if you've not got it on, you can tell the difference in people, in their eyes.
Yeah, projects the energy.
Some are just complying and some are hating you for not wearing a mask. I can feel the difference in people.
There is, it is back to that mindset of self-protection, but it's projected as altruism to the other. And the government have been deliberately playing on this with those kind of lines like granny killer. You know, you don't want to kill your granny, do you? In other words, we pretend that you're doing this because you care about others. But really, we know full well, we understand your psychology much better than you do. And we know that your instinctual response is a self-protection response. So you're primarily doing it to protect yourself, not protect granny. You can pretend all you like. You can virtue signal all you like and say, oh, I'm doing it to save the NHS. That's not the reality. You're doing it because you're worried about your own mortality.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that in and of itself is a bad thing. It's not. What I'm trying to describe is how the system, the state manipulates that and makes you feel like you're doing a good thing. You're not. You're self-protecting and you want to protect your own loved ones. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah?
There was a research done as well that there's something they did saying that people who weren't wearing masks at the moment were mostly narcissistic people.
Yeah, and psychopathic.
Yeah. Well, when did you do this research? Who took part in this? Who did it? How long does it take to do research like that?
It's in the Daily Star, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, conspiracy theorists are psychopaths. Honest, it said so in the Sun.
They're everything, aren't they? They're trying everything to make us look bad for not wearing this piece of tissue on our face.
That's a good point for me to mention this. Thanks to Wayne, he posted a comment under the last episode. So asking a question about, do you think that they want to make lists of us, those people who are, refusers, the dissidents that don't want to take it and whatever. So that then potentially in the near future, when they release number 2, like Billy Bob said, wait till the second one, then they'll notice. When they release the second one, all us poor dissidents will be affected by it and killed off, basically. And what I was trying to respond to him with I don't think they'll ever try and make a list where basically they're kind of rounding people up and putting them on cattle carts to an extermination camp. That lesson is, from history has been learned, and they wouldn't do it in such an obvious way. Certainly not in the way the situation is at the moment. No way. But they're certainly making lists, and they will use that perception of you being on a list, i.e., you don't want to take you don't want to take it. You're one of them dissenters, then, aren't you? And they let you know that they'll be keeping a list of who you are, etc. And they want that fear of consequences to be amplified by the self-policing Stanford effect of, like you're describing, the other people, the conformers, look at you with evil daggers. So straight away through your mind, your self-preservation response will go, oh, I should be worried that somebody's going to come and get me because I'm not conforming. Get me in some fashion, yeah? So they want you to have that impression that, yeah, you're on a list, you're being noted down. And the one thing I'd say to this, and I know this might sound a bit harsh and maybe a bit dark, but if you've sort of taken the perception that a lot of what we're talking about here is basically a spiritual warfare, is in one analogy, what is going on is them to take control of you in a very almost ultimate fashion, then at what point do you lose, or what point have you lost the comprehension of what is meant by the word warfare? War. People die in wars. People have to be standing up, laying down their lives. I know that sounds a bit of an oxymoron, but people have to stand up and be ready to lay down their lives in a war. So when they use that fear against you, they are basically trying to frighten you by giving you the impression that, oh, you'll be on a list, you're a dissenter, eventually somebody will come to get you. That's like somebody on a battlefield shouting across the battlefield, oh, any minute, mate, I might shoot you with my gun. You see, I've got a gun, I might shoot you with it.
Cookie, but we are on lists, okay?
Yeah, I know we are. Yeah.
We are as well.
Yeah. But that's part of my point. If you let that kind of thing put you off, then please find something to do different with your energy, because obviously you're not really perceiving what is going on here. They will constantly use subtle and implied threats of death and suffering against you. They want to frighten you off. Yeah. This is classic Sun Tzu. The best battle is the one won before ever stepping on the battlefield. In other words, you scare the enemy so much that they put their swords down and go back home to the farm. Yeah.
It's true. I got trolled like that, and that's how I handled it. I was making videos saying what they were doing. They were sending stuff to my house, taking pictures of my car, doing lots of stuff.
Yeah.
And they were proper stalking me. When I stopped making videos, stopped talking about it, just dropped it all off, they dropped off as well.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't let them affect me like that. And it's been like that that was 2012. All that shit was happening.
It wouldn't surprise me if some of them were crew on certain brigades that are actively tasked to deal with people like us now.
Yeah.
Who else has got the best kind of access to resources to do that kind of thing? It's not some ignorant kid in his mum's basement who just wants to wind you up by saying silly names and shit. No, these people are quite organised.
The videos were too because I was taking pictures out of my window, and then they were making a video showing the Google image of where I was pointing at and making videos like that. I had a video of they showed me my car. Yeah. So much stuff was happening back then, and it was because I wrote to the MP about the chemtrails. And I'm like, I'm here.
Yeah, you're on a list.
Well, talking about energy, Cookie, though, it made me think about, the that little clip I watched on Saturday of the protest, and then one woman got up and was saying, about the conjunction that's coming, and the astrology side of things. And she said one thing was made me smile. I thought she said millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires use astrology. Yeah. So they use this, and they and people laugh and scoff at all this stuff. That's just one aspect to it, mind you. That's just that's if you go deeper into astrology, it's almost like mathematical, isn't it? When you've got the charts and everything, it takes some study, quite a bit of study, which I've not gone into myself. But there's other aspects of energy work as well, as healing, mediumship, psychic work, that kind of stuff as well, and chi energy, which people use and can there's other forms as well. There's all we are more than what we think we are. In other words, they try and keep us very small and little me, and I can't do anything. Whereas we're more, there's more to us, but they deny that from the moment we're born, because we're never taught about our spirituality, who we are, what our energy is, and our connection here, and why we're on this earth, and what we're here to do. All the good stuff. They don't want that. You're just thrown into a world of what we've got, the matrix, if you like, if you want to call it
materialism.
You're so Cookie that they used to censor my spiritual videos as well. It wasn't just videos I was making about this sort of stuff. It was my spiritual videos. Like, why are you copywriting that? Like, what?
They want people to be fixated in the material, because the majority of the system presents an argument to us all. We're all indoctrinated. Maybe I should, be more accurate and say pretty much all of us, just for the pedantic out there. Pretty much all of us are indoctrinated into a perception that we're within a finite materialistic reality. Therefore, there is only a certain amount of food on the table. That gives them a lever to use against you. That gives them leverage. If you believe your existence is nothing but materialism, your primary concern will be physical survival, which means you'll do anything to survive. Whereas those that see a longer reality, as in you are more than just the physical, and something of you exists far beyond this short experience of life, those people have the ability to put their energy into things outside of themselves. In other words, you will put your life energy into supporting a cause or upholding a principle or an ideal. Yeah, I'm not suggesting this is a perfection. You know, all those things can be manipulated and used against us. But the difference is somebody who can see beyond purely materialism can invest their life energy into something beyond themselves. In other words, that's true altruism. You give something rather than just expecting to consume. The materialism view of reality is all about consumption to stay alive. You have to keep eating. Yeah. Which gives them a control over you. I know in this current society, most people really dislike Marx and his writings and whatever, because of all the Bolshevik connections and the communism and all that kind of shit. But if you're interested and you actually read them, you know, go and look at his work, him and Engels and whatever, I found there's a lot that they're talking about that is accurate. It's spot on. The main principle that the system uses against us is that perception of the finite, that creates a hierarchical structure of control. And whoever sits in control, in monopoly of the resources, controls everyone. It doesn't have to be king. He doesn't have to be elected in a democracy. Doesn't matter a fuck. As one of the Rothschilds said, I think, was it Mayer or Amstel or whatever, one of the Rothschilds said, I care not who sits in the rulership of the nation. Give me control over the money and I'll rule them. Yeah, monopoly of a resource that society relies on. So monopoly of energy resources, monopoly of food production. Marx pointed this out more than a century ago, and people haven't really assimilated or absorbed what he was showing to us. Yeah. As long as we keep externalizing our basic requirements to these outside groups, they have a leverage of control over us. And via that, they create a hierarchical system. So you're left with this inbuilt impression that, oh, well, there's this ladder and I have to climb it. If I want more, I have to be up there. I'm not allowed to have anything unless I'm one of them people up there. And all the different sub-compartmentalizations of that infrastructure. They're vitally concerned with making us fixate on the material. And if you happen to have a perception that's not solely materialistic, then they funnel you into a religion. So you get absorbed by the controlled and already monopolized organized religions, the 501c, all that kind of shit, the control of the Vatican, blah, blah, blah. And that includes all the religions. Yeah, even Buddhism and Hinduism have those same kind of control structures. Or you get sort of sidelined into a kind of new age spiritual wishy-washy personal dimension narcissism bullshit. Again, they're separating you to one side or the other. The reality is that you are both. You are spiritual and physical. You are a spiritual being having a physical experience at the moment. So you're both. You shouldn't separate the two.
Yeah. Absolutely, I've always said that, and people forget this. And this is what, you know, carries. I was going to say for a laugh, I'll just go and consult the runes. You know, but no, I mean, I think all these things have value. I mean, myself, I'm taking the piss, but I know runes, tarot, other things that are, you know, they all have their place. Astrology it all fits into what our ancient ancestors and people who were here way before us. And again, they've sold us a big lie of history, have they not? So. You know, that's something that, again, people need to, you know, realize as well.
Children born today as well, they're going to have no link to their souls at all.
No.
Just because all the vaccinations, by the time they're 3 months old, the amount of jabs those children have already had. And it's just to kill off that soul within them. And then they're linked onto the internet straight away with all their devices.
That's to draw them out of their cells. To basically suck their energy into a screen life. That's what the video you put up today about the sign language in schools. You know, the kids weren't allowed to sing the Christmas carols and what, they got to do sign language. And I think I might have talked about this before, sort of making that point that sign language is quite similar to emoticons that we now, a lot of us use in the kind of social media sphere. And for the younger generations, they can have an entire conversation in just emoticons, and they don't have a problem with that. Yeah, it's like a new language. And that was why I was trying to point out that, like, when somebody of that younger generation sees others around them using sign language, it's like they're looking at emoticons on a screen. There's no verbal communication going on. It's symbols. It's a symbolic language. Yeah. So it increases that in the child's mind or younger person's mind. It increases that distance from reality. It makes them feel like what they're looking at is augmented reality, where people are using emoticons to express themselves. They only want to know.
Maybe it's to get them to stop.
Bullshit.
To get used to not talking, because you know that cloud club piece. It actually said that we're going to merge our physical, biological. You know, all of us are going to merge, and we won't be talking. It says it. He says that they won't be talk. We won't talk anymore.
Yeah, we'll just think.
Just thinking.
And we'll just have voices in our heads.
They block off our mouth.
This is something that makes. I've wondered about this for 2 decades plus, when mobile phones really started taking off, and when they were no longer like a brick with a phone on top. You know, they actually got smaller, and you had the flip phones and whatever. And what was his name? Dom Jolly used to do his little piss tank skits with his giant phone. You know, I'm on the phone.
Oh yeah.
Now, as the technology has progressed, and now people have got the little earbuds and this kind of stuff, you see people walking down the road just talking.
Yeah.
And when I was young, you see somebody like that, it's like, that's an insane person. You know, watch out for them. They might try and do something to you. Now it's like everywhere you look, that's what people are doing. Yeah. They're in a little bubble of perception that's controlled and monitored by the device. They're talking to voices in their heads, which in the past we would have attributed to hysteria or psychosis or things like that. Yeah. But people aren't seeming to get the correlations. It's like, just because it's coming from a bit of technology doesn't mean it isn't turning you into a crazy person in the same way as a psychosis would affect you and make you act like that. Yeah. No, they've been indoctrinated, basically. You've been slowly acclimatized to this concept that in the very near future, when augmented reality starts becoming a lot more popular, you're going to have augmented social media, which means people are going to be walking around with glasses and earbuds in and things, but they're not seeing the world around them. They're seeing something else completely different, and they're interacting with others online in a constant way, like voices in their heads.
Maybe we'll change it all, and we'll all be swept away in some way, shape or form. And
like get rid of nature, get rid of everything in the world. This is better than the world itself and nature and everything else you can take part in.
Yeah, man-made reality.
Man-made nature, man-made reality. Our poor children, what does it look like for them?
Which contradicts the words themselves. You know, and then we could add in talking about cultural Marxism and the redefinition of words and things like that. The inversion that they've been doing with so much of language and meaning.
Yeah. Do you keep getting that a lot more? I'm getting that so much more, because I was thinking the other day when I was talking about Jesus and all that, the prophets for religion. Look at that prophet. Look at that way, the prophets that have been made for this religion, the 3 prophets. They've it's all twisted.
It also demonstrates another one of those words that demonstrates the angular nature of the English language. I've talked about this before. Yeah? It's called Anglish, because we were supposedly the people of the Angles, the Angle Isles. Yeah. So we spoke Anglese, English. But really, I think there's a lot more depth to that, a lot more mystical depth, where words can have 2 meanings in a similar fashion of a magician's trick with a mirror. You're seeing 2 realities at the same time, which means the magician has control of which one they present to you. So he can say the word prophet to you with one meaning, or he can use the word in a different meaning. And how he uses that word alters your perception of reality. Therefore, he's manipulating your reality. So it's like using mirrors. Yeah. This is the way they have inverted or reflected meanings or hidden their true intentions by using words with double meanings. Yeah?
We still have I think we've still got a chance, though. We still have a chance.
Oh, yeah.
Because we can, push this the other way and take our kids camping, go into nature, do the things we always do, and don't let these people try and manipulate us to, go in that direction.
I'm not doing this deliberately. I had this queued up and wanted to play it anyway, but I want to play something that's probably going to piss you off or upset you. But as I sort of mentioned earlier, I want to play this because I think it really does need to do the rounds, and people need to see it and share it and think about it and talk about it with others. But let me sort out my screen share, because it would be better if we get audio on this as well, so you can hear what the woman's saying. I'm sure some people have probably already seen this. Thanks to JD, Derb JD. I'll put the link in the side chat in a sec while it's playing. This is a woman who went to see her mother at a care home. It ends up where she can only talk through the window. She's talking via a mobile phone that she's speaking to this nurse here on and asking about her mother's condition. And I'll just let it play.
Right, well, can I tell you, for the record, that colour is very poor. She's quite blue around the lip, and her breathing is quite fast, and that, to me, that is a cause for concern. Well, I know, but you never do have concerns for her. With respect, you don't. I understand you're doing your best, but I can see that my mother is not bothered for looking at her through the window. Well, what did you mean I've been up on Monday morning? To the day away. You're not the manager, but I'm reporting. Hang on a minute, just a minute before you go. I am asking you. I want this doctor. Hang on a minute, don't you go away. Hey, don't you go away.
Oh my
fucking. Don't go away. Don't go away, you bastard. You absolute bastard.
Yep. As I said, it might piss you off or upset you, but that is currently some of the reality here in the UK of the situation as it's ongoing. And that is, I know it's also another good example of that Stanford effect. The nurse just didn't really care, and I know there is a level of detachment that is required by the job, because otherwise it is extremely psychological taxing to work in a job like that. There's a heavy psychological, emotional load on the care workers who work in those kind of environments. But that doesn't excuse that kind of attitude and the trauma caused to the daughter by her just ignorantly rolling down the blind as if to say, fuck off. Yeah.
Where's the humanity in that care worker? Where has it gone?
Yeah, exactly.
Where's the empathy gone? What's happening?
That's why I felt it needs to be shown, because that demonstrates how far they pushed people. Because as I say, it's one thing to talk about how care workers, nurses, doctors, etc. need a certain distance or detachment from the patients they're looking after. But there's also that expectation, or it's part of the job role, that caring for somebody is not just about providing for physical needs. There's emotional care and there's social care at the same time. So treating somebody like that is treating them like an object, materialistic. Yeah,
like an animal.
But I wanted to get that shown and done because you know, I do agree with you talking about the energy and stuff, and that's why I wanted to be able to move on from that and show that, yeah, that's an example of some of the crappy shit that's happening at the moment in the UK.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of stuff, good things that's happening. That I'm not necessarily suggesting that are a solution or, you know, a perfect answer to all the questions. No, but it's progress, yeah. And one of them is, as you mentioned, some of the protests that have been happening over the week and the weekend.
Yeah, there's been quite a few
links for these. One of them was from that same channel again, JD. He went and he did live coverage of the Birmingham protest. Sorry, I'm multitasking to get the link.
What are the police like?
Well, this is the thing. This is
London. What's happening?
This is a good reason why I wanted to bring it up and talk about these. Another one was Marty from Elusive Exposure, who covered the Manchester protests, which I'll link as well in a sec. But they showed, like in Birmingham, the police just stayed out the way. You couldn't even see them in the video, which for a protest gathering is sort of like, that's unusual in these days. You know, normally you'll see evidence gatherers or something in the background. It's like, no, they're just nowhere to be seen. They just left them all alone.
Yeah.
They did their little presentation. If you've got the time, I recommend watching it. I know some of it is some of the kind of like classic cliches of it's the usual talking heads. You know, it's the celebrity talking heads. Piers Corbyn was there, doing his usual, trying to get people to sort of do the chanting. You know, he's old school Labour, isn't he? So he likes his chants to get people going, to get the crowd going and whatever. But Gareth Icke was there as well. And he gave a short talk, which was mainly, which I appreciate, he concentrated on the Socratic method, and he didn't exactly tell people what to think. He just asked questions. He said, what about this bit here? What about this bit here? What about this bit here? Using questions to point out so many of the inconsistencies that we've talked about. Yeah? So I think it's worth hearing that. And the main thing that he mentions, which was why I wanted to talk about it, was, what do you do? What's the solution? What do you do about it? Well, one of the primary things that you do about it, which I agree with him totally on, is live your life. As in, carry on your day as if you normally would. Stop acquiescing to the rules, the guidelines, which are not laws. They're not legal even, or they stretch the concept of legality, but go about your day. I know
you can't if you shut down your workplace and you're not allowed.
Exactly. I know it could be easier to say than actually do, but in the long run, the only way this situation turns around is when enough people just say, no, we ain't doing it, mate. No, I'm not closing my shop. I'm going to open. Customers want to come in. No, I'm not shutting down my business. My workers need employment. I need them to be working. We're going to carry on. Until enough people start doing that, like what we was talking about earlier, the believers, the benders of the knee, will drag us in their direction. You might not like their direction. You might think, oh, that's not going to be very pleasant. But if you don't actively say no, their direction of energy will drag you along with them. That's what the herd does. Yeah, the herd swings and the rest of us get pulled along by their gravity. So I agree with him. I know it's such a cliche now to say this kind of stuff, but it is really the only way we deal with it. You can try different approaches, like using the law against them and stuff like that. Some of it may work, but in the long run, you're dealing with a system that when they really want to, they don't give a fuck whether you're truthful or accurate or honest or doing all the shit that you're supposed to be doing. If they want you out the way, they'll get you out the way.
Yeah, because a few businesses have tried. A few of those gyms were staying open. They were doing personal training. The police came down so hard on them, and the amount of police that turned up just to scare any other business off from doing it. The guy just kept opening. It was quite funny. Yeah, I love what he did. It was brilliant.
It's important as well to make the emphasis about the community being involved in that. It's not just the business owner that needs to, you know, stand their ground and say, no, I'm not shutting. You know, if he's not got people turning up to support his business, then it's pointless him staying open anyway. So in the same fashion,
there were people in there working out, and just, it was brilliant.
That's why, I mean, he talks about trying to set up a system where we can notify each other, the businesses that are ignoring the bullshit and getting on with what they do, and those that are the compliant, you know, the obedient. And I don't know whether that's ever going to be really possible in a truly organized sense, because whenever you start trying to organize something like that, the system comes along and fucks with it deliberately, purposefully. Whereas if you do it on a kind of underground railroad fashion, by word of mouth, by direct community interactions, you let those businesses know, like, look, mate, if you're against this shit, so am I. If you stay open, I'll come and shop in your shop. Yeah. Whereas the other guys down the road who are insisting that I have to wear a mask and jump through hoops and all, I ain't going to spend my money in there anymore. Fuck them, boycott them. Yeah. And you'd use this process of support and boycott, because a lot of the obedient that occupy the middle ground of that hierarchical structure, they only do what they do because of the carrot incentive, because they're promised payment or they're making a big profit. Yeah, there's that word again. They're making a big profit out of what is happening. So you hit them where it influences them. Yeah, it's no good talking to them. They just ignore what you say. You can quote whatever law you want and they'll just ignore what you say. But if you cost them profit, they're more likely to go, oh, hang on a minute, all the people were refusing to shop here because I'm telling them they got to wear masks. I'm going to go out of business, or I'll stop obeying those stupid rules and guidelines. And then all my customers will come back. Until people start doing things like that, which was why I took notice as well of the Nottingham market being shut down today. That RT, I think, showed some clips of the number of people that were there. Yeah, to me that demonstrated that a lot more of the population is now going, fucking silly rules and all this, we're going out shopping, we're going to this traditional market, thank you very much. And the council turned around and went, oh no, somebody's scared, shut it all down. That's that psychological manipulation, which, as I say, if you don't actively say no or ignore what they're doing and go a different direction, they will drag you along with them. I hope that makes sense. Oh, I forgot the link to Marty's video. I'll just do that.
Yeah, I think it was Marty who's in Manchester, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He did live from there.
I'm glad he covered that, because that, again, you can see the sheer number of people. I know it's maybe a few thousand, but it's still a few thousand. And there's a good mixture of demographic. It's not all crazy conspiracy theorists and all that usual kind of accusation. Yeah, there's everyday people showing that they're not happy and they're not going to go along with the bullshit. Yeah, so I'm glad he was there covering that. And I know there was other protests and gatherings.
There was the one with the Indian farmers, wasn't there, outside the Indian embassy?
Yes, I don't have that one. Maybe we can come back to that on Wednesday. And the French as well. Well,
that got really. I mean, I was watching that Saturday afternoon. I did, and that was there was cars burning. There was all sorts going on.
They'll probably have flooding soon in France.
Yeah, yeah.
Keep an eye on that.
Paris will be underwater. Yeah.
They'll probably try and use it to wash away all the barriers that the people have built on the road.
Particularly, you could see in that what was going on. There was a lot of, more, just setting, like I say, setting fires, lots of fires, cars burning, bins burning, and there was it looked like a war zone.
They're burning their own cars. That's great.
Well, they're burning whoever's cars are unfortunately parked at the side of the road where they're protesting.
They're going up, and they're normally the expensive high-end ones as well. They burn. They seem to get targeted more.
Yeah, because the protests are the people sort of. I don't want to say organising it, because it's not necessarily any kind of like highly structured organisation that's doing it. but they've learnt enough about protesting that they know you go to the place that's got a high value commercial environment, i.e. shops that are high value, you know. As I was saying earlier, you want to make them listen to you, you've got to hit them in the pocket primarily. So you go and protest an environment where all those shop owners would be like, shit, it's the fucking protesters, board it up. So they're not trading that day. So the corporation that owns that high value outlet has taken a financial hit. So they're more likely to put pressure on the government saying, oh, all these protesters are causing us to lose money. Deal with it, sort it out. Yeah, I know, again, it's back to the unfortunate reality that for a lot of people, they either haven't thought of or spent any time thinking about principles and philosophy and spirituality. No, all they care about is that there's no money in their pocket and the corporations are fucking them over or exploiting them or whatever. So you deal in that process of, you know, helping people realize affecting the corporation in their pocket, their bottom line, is really the only way we deal with this. It's not a true free market. It's crony capitalism. It's not a true free market. But some of the principles of a free market are still effective to a large degree. And what I'm talking about is that principle of the productivity goes where the public's desire goes. So if the public stops spending money in a shop, that shop goes out of business. You've got to think in this fashion, the fashion that they think in that middle tier of the infrastructure. Yeah, they're the enforcers. As I've ranted all year long, near enough, the government doesn't need to make the vaccines mandatory. They just need to get the commercial industry, the sectors, the commercial sectors to do it. Yeah, that's the corporatism method of doing shit. That's what's happening now. Which means unless you vote with your dollar, as they say, unless you use that monetary influence to your own advantage, they will change society such that you won't be able to go into a pub without an ID card or a chip to say you've had the vaccine.
They can't use that word mandatory vaccine. They're going to force this because we've been saying it. But society, we won't be able to go to the shop maybe. Yeah. Maybe you can't have a bank card or I don't know how they're going to do it. Can't travel abroad. That's going to definitely be one.
Well, there's already been suggestions in this country, the rumour mill suggestions, as well as the direct proof from Australia, where they will make connections of, for example, no jab, no pay. Yeah. So if you're in Australia, it depends where you are. I know it's different in different regions, but if you're in receipt of their dole money, their equivalent of dole money over in Australia, you have to accept the vaccine. So it's not mandatory. Yeah, technically it's not mandatory.
That's why they've made so many people dependent on it already on the system. And that started last year. Last year, there were the highest figures of divorce and people separating since 1972. So a lot of people were already, stuck onto that system. So they've got so many extra people are now on it because all the places that are closed.
Yeah.
It's so well
that brings us nicely back around to the concepts of eugenics. Why do they want to get rid of various demographics of the public, usually typically beginning with the elderly? Why do they want to get rid of a lot of the elderly? Because they're a materialistic burden on their system. They cut down the profits that go into their pockets. So they want shed of that excess dead wood. The pension debt is now so astronomical. They need to cut down on the population levels. It's not really about overpopulation in a global sense. They use that as the excuse, as the faux altruism that they care about the world. It's not really about that. It's the fact that they know those excess numbers of people are a burden on their own profits. They're sapping their profits. And then you combine that brings us up today to talking about the whack scene and the reality that they themselves have admitted that it's going to have an effect on fertility. They've just used a bit of legalese, mealy-mouthed, ambiguous language to say, well, we don't know exactly how much it's going to affect fertility. So in other words, it is going to affect fertility. You just don't know how severely for each individual.
Yeah.
It could completely sterilize somebody, but you don't know. That is a eugenicist wet dream, pardon the deliberate oxymoron pun. Yeah. That, combined with the rollout of the surveillance state, the Great Reset effect, the cashless society, the autonomous vehicles, which are all going to require that Internet of Things, and that then brings us the requirement of the, a pre-prepared, a little thing for this, just in case if I say it directly,
go on,
and it causes a, an algorithm problem. Just count the number of letters, and you should hopefully get what I mean. It's not a DNA sequence. That's what Gary thought I meant when I showed it to him. Gary says hello as well. He's doing all right. He's just still under curfew over in Barcelona at the moment. So, but that potential, which I did a little sort of hour-long broadcast from Jam and myself were chatting last week after a original channel got stomped on by the Gestapo because she mentioned a few things that the algorithm doesn't like. In that Chinese room experiment, we basically got kicked out the room because we're saying things we're not supposed to. It could also have been that audio clip of the Schwab himself as well, couldn't it? So I don't like the self-policing thing, but this is the environment. So trying to tap dance through that environment. The letters scrolling along the bottom of the screen, count the number of letters, how many letters are there? You'll hopefully get what I'm referencing. That intrinsically is tied into the Internet of Things, which is required to do the cashless society, which the World Economic Forum says we have to have, otherwise we're going to have a frightening future. So they need the rollout of this new version of the technology. And at the same time, we have this catastrophe, this crisis that is acting as a really good cover story to explain why you need to have a electronically interconnected ID that says whether you have or have not had the vaccine, even though the vaccine doesn't give you immunity or prevent you from being a transmitter. Do you start to see how all those threads have now come together as we approach 2021, which was Agenda 21? Although it wasn't meant to culminate in the year 2021, there were a lot of their goals that they wanted to get en route by now. Some of them were meant to culminate in 2021, but most of them are meant to carry on to 2030. So all of those threads are starting to come together. This
very quickly, very, very quickly.
Yeah, go on. Oh, you mean they're coming together? Sorry, yeah. I thought you meant you wanted to say something quickly.
No.
But they are now, I feel, for myself, my own perception, that's my usual caveat, there is no questioning this anymore. This is what is happening around us. This is what they were attempting to do.
Yeah.
But it intrinsically relies on you going along with it.
Yeah, your choice. Yeah.
Boris Johnson can't go around the country installing all the antennas required for this shit to happen. They're still saying they're going to block Huawei. Huawei, man. They're going to block Huawei. The companies are no longer allowed to install their tech. But that doesn't mean they're stopping installing this new level of the technology. They're just saying they're not going to use Chinese-produced technology to do it, which is such again, it's a PR stunt.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
still happens regardless.
Exactly. And remember several years ago, I pointed this out. It's like, who's just been visiting with, well, maybe it wasn't several years ago, but it was a while ago. Who had been visiting with Theresa May? It was, the head of the Chinese firewall department. You know, that firewall that they have that controls and monitors all of the internet traffic in China. Their head guy has been visiting with Theresa May. I wonder why he's here. And then we had the Xi Jinping come for a visit, and it's all, we love the Chinese, but now all of a sudden the Chinese are bad guys because they gave us the flu. And yet the Chinese don't have a vaccine, but they're all going back to work But do you see how they're being used as a straw man bad guy? Whereas we are actually instituting and installing exactly the same setup that they have in China. A social credit system where you will have an electronic ID that includes all your information, including your health information. The health is the foot in the door, the tip of the spear. You need it to show that you're not going to kill granny, and it's going to have all your financial data on it. And you will live in a society where you will be required to show that data, QR code or a COVID pass green screen or whatever, every time you want to go to the shops or travel between a region to another, etc., etc., etc. This is nothing to do with a virus, not a physical virus of biology. This is to do with an electronic virus and an information virus of the mind, of the spirit. But please don't forget that all that stuff to do with the banner that's going across the bottom of the screen, all of that is still ongoing in the background while everybody's running around because of the COVID bullshit.
Yeah, I was thinking what they're doing out in Australia.
Yeah, Australia.
It's just unbelievable what they've been doing out there. And what we see here now, but what there's mandatory over there, you know, that thing you mentioned, where you have to, you know, for getting your benefits, you have to prove
it's not mandatory.
Yeah,
technicality, you know, it's not mandatory. But if you don't get it, we're not paying you any money.
Yeah. They'll never use that word because we used it too many years. Let's think of something else.
They know lawfully it contravenes the Geneva Convention. And thanks to several people that I know have sort of mentioned this in the chat rooms or put links in, like Tassie does, you know, she'll always put links into a lot of the stuff we're talking about. I think a lot more of the general public are starting to either come across that information or realise it for themselves, like thinking, hang on a minute, weren't the Germans doing that shit to people and, you know, experimenting on them, and what was the Geneva Convention for, blah, 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 blah. The governments know they cannot ever make a legislation to say or to make it mandatory, because if they do, they're breaking international law, the Geneva Convention. So they go this commercial route, this corporatism route instead. They don't make it mandatory, but the businesses do, the insurance companies do, etc., etc.
I just wonder how bad this is all going to get. Like how next year, like how
they did say it was going to get a lot worse. I mean, I think we're right in that now, aren't we? We're right through that sort of. This is where it's really getting on top, and they're rolling out.
They're rolling it now, and
I do personally think we're in the actual acceleration of the avalanche. You know, like we talked about the dam breaking and all that lot. You know, I also think the analogy of the avalanche, it begins with a few pebbles. There's been a few bits all along through the year, here and there, of people saying, hang on a minute, this don't make sense. Or scientific papers coming to the front, or some expert being a whistleblower. What little pebbles, they've been pebble. And now we've got to the stage where that's accumulated to an avalanche.
Exactly.
Yeah? And now we're seeing more of the public, like I said, with that Nottingham market, more of the public are going, fuck this stupidness, we're going back to life. Yeah.
And people can still think, and when they do see something that shakes them and wakes them, then there's no going back once they start thinking.
But some people, though, Peter, they do. I'm shocked. I'll hear somebody say something really good or understand me, and then later on, they're back to where they were. It's like, oh, hang on.
Maybe it's cognitive dissonance. Yeah, cognitive dissonance.
They go forward and they go back again. They get scared, and then they think, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that," you know.
And it's fear as well. People are under a lot of fear as well. They think, "Oh, you know what people are going to think of me." And when you do come out, sometimes even your family disown you and stuff. It's awful. So you know, it's like when you start seeing the world for what it really is and waking up. It's a difficult process, really. It's not an easy one. I know. You know,
it is an ego.
Yeah, go on.
It is an ego death. If you genuinely pursue it, the pathway of the information will lead you to an ego death. And that's not necessarily not at all. Is that a bad thing? You know, I'm not suggesting that you want to get rid of your ego completely. I don't think that's healthy either. But the point is, your concept of what your world is a reflection of you, your egoic self, Yeah. So if your world is destroyed, the ego that was the reflection of that world is also destroyed. So this concept of people believing in the state system in a very trusting fashion. You know, sociologists and psychologists have talked about this for many years now. You know, there's been a steady loss of trust in the establishment and in the scientific experts and shit like that. You know, Neil deGrasse Tyson had a whinge about it years ago, yeah. But it's a reality.
And the more that happens, the more the propaganda happens. That starts going on. As soon as we start believing this, they raise their game, and then it's just
exactly. They're like a market trader trying to get you to come back to their stall.
Yeah.
You know, they increase their patter, they increase their offers to try and get you to come back to them. But I know we talked about we've talked about it from the point of view of, like, I mean, Schwab calls it the fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah.
You know, I define it differently, but whatever. But the reality is, in a similar fashion to the printing press, the advent of this modern telecommunications technology has given us an opportunity that radically changes our world. You know, it can be good, it can be bad, it has a double-edged use like technology does. So we're at a choice point. And that situation has led to a lot more people having access to a lot more information, which is not just bookish documentation and whatever, it's information like this, communication, where you get an idea of other people's ideas and opinions and emotions, etc., etc. That's all information that makes up your world. So their trust in the old paradigm way that the world was running is gone. This is all part of the system's long agenda if they want to transition the world from an infrastructure of nation states that trade and make alliances with each other to a singular world system under a singular world government with a singular religious and economic system and blah, blah, blah. We have to make that choice. They can talk about how it's going to be this, that, or the other, but that's them talking about it. Klaus Schwab can't go around the world physically building the infrastructure required to make a global reset system work. He's relying on a network of others. If at some point in that chain of obedience, somebody turns around and says no, then the construction project stops. And this is, you know, the kind of point we've been trying to make for years. You know, the only reason they're being able to build this pyramid is because you're helping them. You're the ones putting the bricks in place. Stop it.
It's not real. It's an idea, and it's a bad one. Yeah, it's
like I said earlier about the support and boycott. You know, think a little more about where you put your energy, and your money, your bits of paper are just a reflection of your energy, stored up energy. Think a little more about where you're putting it, and you can influence how society grows. Like affecting a garden, which fertilizer you're choosing to use, the stuff that they say they want you to use, or something else that you discover for yourself. Yeah. They're feeding us shit and expecting us to build their pyramid. No, fuck them. Throw it back in their face. Build your own pyramid. I think you get the meaning, the mixed metaphors and analogies. But there's so much stuff like that happening at the moment where it really does hinge on that choice. We're in a highly complex situation at the moment where, you know, it seems immensely chaotic. But really, there is very defined guiding threads that are happening here. It's just the perception of chaos based on fear. You know, it's like they're banging a drum outside your house and saying, oh, the thunderstorm's going to destroy your house any minute. Be afraid. Jump out your bed. Run around like a headless chicken. The reality is, they're the ones generating the majority of that fear. They are the ones that are terrorizing their own public so that they can steer them in a certain direction. Develop some courage, grow some balls, and say, hang on a minute, where's this fear coming from? Is this genuine? Is there something I actually need to be afraid of? An illness that has a 99% survival rate? Do I really need to be afraid of that, such that I've changed my entire life and the society and everything? No, fuck off.
Some people are, though. That's the thing. You hear them talking, and they are.
I just think
scared, and they're scared of dying, and they're scared of this, and it's like, my God, what aren't you scared of?
Yeah, that media-controlled mind. It's giving a response that it's been entrained to. Learned helplessness response of they hear the banging noise outside the window and they just automatically assume it's thunder because the TV tells them it's thunder.
It's snow thunder. And the fake alien invasion will probably finish them off, maybe. That's a eugenics plan as well.
Yeah,
invasion or the second coming of Jesus, whichever it would be.
Let me just share a screenshot that Gary did that he left in one of the chat rooms. I'll show this because I thought it's appropriate for talking about the monolith and the blue beam and the alien invasion. Yeah, can you see the monolith there on the right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and isn't it funny how it's very similar to the shape of a needle? That's a close-up image of a hypodermic needle.
Yeah.
The monolith had that. Well, one of them anyway had that kind of
shape.
Yeah. This is the concrete column that the Who stood in front of for the Won't Get Fooled Again album cover. Yeah, and on the left, the infamous Georgia Guidestones. I think Gary makes quite a good sort of connection here to demonstrate the eugenics narrative.
You should have someone taking a knee next to the needle. Have a football player taking the knee.
Yeah, with his mask on and his rubber gloves.
Hazmat.
They're playing using methodologies and psychology that they've learned over hundreds of years. But the problem with that is you can see the pattern of it from the trace of history, which means you can start to predict their moves. In a martial arts sense, it's like going to watch somebody else that you're planning to have a fight with or a spar with in the near future. So you go and watch some of their matches before you're due to have your match with them. And you study the way they fight. You watch their moves. You see what katas they know and things like that. And then comes to your fight and you're forearmed with knowledge. Yeah. Knowledge is not necessarily the answer to everything, but it certainly will help you a hell of a lot along the way.
Yeah, I called it out last. Sorry.
A lot difficult. They're flipping the script every. We should be able to keep up with them. I wouldn't say that I could predict what they're doing now. Maybe years ago we would talk about something and we'd say this is going to happen, and it would. But now their fight has changed so much. I can't predict what's going to happen. I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I certainly agree in terms of being specific, but I've actually found it easier to predict what's been going on since last year because I felt that their moves became so much more obvious and apparent.
More open about it, weren't they?
Yeah, it was like they were stomping around the stage, declaring how their character in the play, in the theatre, they're declaring their character traits and saying, I'm going to do this, and then it's going to be this way, and this is going to happen. And it's like the little dictator marching up and down the stage in front of his grouped up audience, his troops that he's forced to obey him. He's marching up and down saying, it's going to be like this, and we're going to have this, and you're going to do that, and I'm going to demand. They're making demands. They are attempting to write a narrative. I found out, certainly over the course of this year. Sorry?
It just keeps changing.
It does to a degree, but the main thread of it doesn't. That they want to achieve something that is at least akin to the Great Reset. Yeah, as described by the World Economic Forum, that's pretty much spot on to all the things we've been looking at over the years. Things that connect to Agenda 21, the surveillance state, etc., etc. So if you know that that's pretty much where they want to go, then whenever you're tuning into the mainstream media and you see an article about how, like the ID pass, but it turns out it's just an appointment card. But the press or the media is deliberately calling it an ID pass. That is an indication that they're more likely going to go ahead with that whole agenda, that plan. Whether people like it or not, they're going to try and introduce some form of ID pass. I'm not exactly predicting the future or being specific on details, but it's a good general observation of where we're going.
That's in the name itself. The COVID ID 19 also stands for AI. The 1 and the 9.
Yeah.
So it's just all in the name they've given us. It's COVID ID AI.
Yeah. It's like it's just been a sustained attack all year, like demoralize us or demoralization techniques they've used, over the last 9 months on us.
They need to browbeat people. Like you said 8 months ago, a psychic attack. They need to psychically subdue people.
Absolutely.
Singing or dancing. They're stopping children from singing, guys.
Yes. Yeah.
Look at that over Christmas. The joy children singing together, the plays they do, the practicing they do, the joy that they give their parents. All of that will be gone this year. They're going to be like this. That's the Christmas play this year. Yeah? What the hell?
The only sign language I know is bullshit, which I don't think can quite fit on the screen.
All I'll say is, on a positive note, let's hope that that's the last time they have to do that, because let's see where we are when we head into the 2021, when we go through all this energy shifts as well that are, been happening all year. Shifting us around, trying to, they seem to have the upper hand, and now it's shifting because people are waking up. So, it's all gonna, maybe be a bit different to what we think it might be, because they only have the weapon of the mainstream media to use on us. So the less you look at that, or the less you get sucked into that, then look for other things, of course, but just that mainstream stuff. I find it hard to look at the headlines when we do the reality chat. Sometimes I think I'd have to look at this site again, or because it's all, as we know, it's all manipulated. It's all used on you to steal your thoughts and everything. It's all Tavistock. It's all social engineering. It's all coming out of that. And it's that's what we're aware of now.
They lead us from this place to that place.
Yeah,
get led about, and they just want us to follow here and sniff there. That's why I just keep off it all. I haven't gone on the bead for, I don't know. I'll just stay off it.
But at the moment, I think that's what their only weapon is, and if people are buying into it, then that they want the vaccine, they're going to go for that. Then that's, again, we have the choice, don't we? Those who are informed are making better choices. Those who are not informed are unfortunately stuck with the official narratives of stuff and go with that.
None of my family take it. My job is done.
Cool. Yeah. I agree totally with it. If they want to have it, that's up to them. Yeah, if they want to go ahead. I know it sounds horrible, but I don't feel that it's right that I should prevent them. If they feel convinced and it's what they want to do, that's up to them. But I draw the line when they tell me that the entirety of society has to be altered to fit that, and that I'm going to be excluded because I'm not going along with what they choose. No, sorry, that's not going to happen.
My body, my choice.
Absolutely.
That's why I keep hashtagging that everywhere. My body, my choice. End of.
I'm glad you mentioned again the planetary connection.
Yeah.
Because just to add this in, to kind of like add extra weight, add extra gravity to some of the stuff we've been talking about. Jupiter represents creation. I know for a lot of people they may not get the kind of archetypal connections, but in the ancient pantheons, which we even get the word Jupiter from, from the Greco-Roman pantheons, where it was Jupiter and Zeus were represented by the planet Jupiter. Yeah. Each one of those was the king of that pantheon. I think I might have mentioned this the other week. Most people think of pantheism in a slightly distorted fashion. They think that something like the Roman and Greek pantheon, as we're taught it in education, means that there's multiple gods. There isn't the one true God like Christianity or Islam or anything like that, the Abrahamic tradition. But it's not really accurate. Because the Greek and Roman pantheons each had a king god, and in both of those, the mythology behind them, that king god was in himself the son of the original creator god being. They were both basically rebel children that inherited the kingdom from their naughty fathers or whatever. But anyway, the point being, the king is meant to be the bringer of creation. He's the seed provider. You know, and a lot of this stuff can get quite crude, but the kind of ancient mythology and meaning, archetypal meaning behind all this stuff does connect right back to those base levels of reality.
Yeah.
We as biological beings need to procreate to create the next generation.
Yeah.
That's the power of three, the father, mother, child, yes, which includes the philosophical and spiritual generation of new ideas and information and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So Jupiter represents the seed giver. He's the giver of that creative energy, but that creative energy needs a womb to gestate in. Earth is that womb, yeah. But this conjunction is the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction. Jupiter represents that creative energy, something being born anew, you know, the new beginnings, all that kind of stuff. Saturn represents refinement. And that doesn't necessarily mean refined, like, oh, I drink my tea with my little pinky out. You know, no, it means the conforming of something to a pre-desired order. Okay. Classically, and this is why they are the Saturnian cult. You know, you can look at the mythology and the information from groups like the Freemasons, where they talk about Saturn as being that transition point. It's the planet of transition, where you go from the rough-hewn rock of potentiality to the truly actualized being of the cut and shaped and what they call dressed stone. In other words, a stonemason has gone around it and given it an orderly shape. Yeah, he's brought it to order. That's what Saturn represents. It's that planet of transition. So we've got new energy being injected into the solar system, which is combining with a process of transition and refinement through Saturn back to the womb that is Earth. Yeah. So whether you want to think that all the stuff to do with the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset and all that kind of shit is all just conspiracy theory, there are galactic things happening that represent a change of the age. Yeah. We are approaching the age of Aquarius. We are transitioning the equinoctial line. We're also going across the galactic charge sheet, which is the polarization of the sun, whether you're on the positive or negative side of the sun's output. Yeah? All of these things combined means there is a major shift in our world happening. And that's not necessarily in a directly physical sense when I say our world. You know, it's not like the planet's going to suddenly change shape or some shit. Your world is defined by your experience of it. Your experience of it has changed, hasn't it, this year? I think that's pretty much true for everyone. Your world has radically changed over this year. If we took video clips of the news and the media from today and went back, say, a year and a half and showed it to people then, they'd all be like, that's bullshit. That's some movie trailer or some shit. I don't believe that. Here we are. We are going through a major transition. They want to convince us that it has to be a certain way that they are telling us. Remember I mentioned the Saturnian cult?
Well, they want us going into it in this certain vibration and energy. And most people, they want us in this.
If we are afraid of the change, if we're afraid of the change, we will externalize all our power to a warrior who claims he will protect us during the change.
And also, if we're not at this point, if we're not in tune with our humanity, what makes us human, got to really be in tune with it. I keep feeling this.
Yes, exactly.
Hold on to what makes you really human, guys. Because if we hold on to that, if things change, if something happens, I think you're going to be okay because you've held on to that inside. Yeah. I think it's really important.
I know. I've sort of made this kind of caveat before. I'm just saying it just to, cover more bases because I know some people complain in one way or another. Even if they stop all of a sudden overnight, they stop everything they've been doing and everything goes back to normal as it was in 2019. your perception of reality would have been altered by the experience of this year alone.
Yeah.
So however you approach the question or the description, there has been a major change happening in our world, in our environment, in our reality. So your choice is still, are you going to just sit back and hope that you don't get squished during that change, or are you going to actively participate in some fashion? And really that comes down to, like you say, being yourself, knowing yourself, connecting back to what really matters in life, not the bullshit that they say, they pretend they want you to believe in so that they make a profit.
They want you to feel. They're telling you how to feel now. They're
Exactly.
actually telling you how to feel.
Yeah,
You know, when the news is on, telling you how to feel physically, mentally, everything.
Yeah, exactly. That transition is, again, I'll reference the Stanford prison experiment. They want people with a mindset that has completely given away their sovereignty to their control. Your choice now is, are you going to do that? Are you going to remain the being that you are, or are you willing to give up, you know, I know it's again a cliche, you're willing to give up your own sovereignty for a promise of a little bit of safety, because it is only a promise. It's no guarantee. They're not guaranteeing the vaccine will protect you. So it really does come back to that energetic, spiritual connection to yourself. Having the time to be able to consider that for yourself, and how much information you want to accumulate about that, you know, going to look for scientific papers or stuff about the media or documentary. That's your choice. At some point, I think you'll reach a sense that you've seen enough. I did a few years ago, really around 2012. And since then, all I've been doing is trying to repackage in one way or another the same kind of message, just saying it in different ways that hopefully it connects to people. Yeah. But for me, it's sort of like, there is no point. There is no future in the direction they're trying to drag us all. And that's what they're trying to drag us that direction. You don't have to go. You don't have to do what they want, their plan, etc., etc. We are the real builders of the world. If that makes sense, hopefully.
Yeah, but we need numbers, Cookie.
Yeah.
I hear and understand everything you're saying.
I think the reason
they've got us all spaced out. That's also, we're all spaced out. Everyone feels the same.
We are, but we have that advantage of this technology. This technology can be used in our benefit. How you use it, you know, you've got to be a bit careful with it, because, like you said, like we were talking about earlier, you know, there's people out there that will try and interfere with you or stop you doing what you're doing, you know, frighten you.
This platform, it doesn't represent, it doesn't show our spirituality. We don't feel that. When we're together, we do, because the sheep are all together around us. They've got that energy, but we're all spread out. So
I think we're in a sort of process as well. We're going through this gradual, you know, coming to terms with things as well. You know, it's been a shock year for some people, hasn't it? Where they've had to come quickly to terms with what we were laughed at 10 years ago. They've suddenly said, "Oh, you know." So there's that element, and you know, it's just about being, you know, it's a progress. It's like we're moving in the right direction, and even though they'll tell us we're not every day, we are. And that's where we've got to have that, you know, that inner strength in ourselves to know that is actually going to get better, is going to change, because they will lie and lie and lie like they always do very well, don't they, every day, you know. So it's seen through that lie, and everybody is seeing through that lie a lot more now than ever. So it's just this time, and you know, as we process it, and then we get to the end of the year, go through this energy shift and see where we all end up.
See what we look like in 2021.
Yeah.
What we look like.
We've all jumped on the, you know, let's go for the, you know, the World Economic Forum or whatever. Let's just see. Let's hope not, you know.
Hashtag vax them first.
Yes,
and
things like that.
My choice. Use those two.
Yeah.
My choice.
If they want to have it, or if they insist that we should all have it, then they should start with themselves. And I'm quite happy to wait 10 years
Yeah.
And then we'll study them and see how they survived and if it affected them. Then I might consider it again. But until they've done that, no, they can go away with that shit. The other thing I wanted to say is, I know you're saying about we're all sort of spread out. And in a statistical sense, there's a lot more of the herd or the obedience, the sheeple, than there is of us. You know, I don't like making that kind of distinct us and them stuff. It is a mixture. You know, people have various sort of degrees of wakefulness, as it were. But think of it this way, and now I'm sort of just, you know, polishing things to try and make it look shinier. But their output, their energy output, their spiritual output is reduced because they're oppressed by the fear and the technology and everything else. They're being compressed, like pressure creating coal. They're being crushed down. Whereas
wherever we are, then the whole neighbourhood of sheep.
We're allowed a transmitter because we've already seen something further on that means we're looking over the horizon to our destination. They're still concentrating on the pretend wolves that are patrolling around them where they stood. I'm not looking at those pretend wolves. I'm looking over the horizon. Thank you very much. That volume, that energetic spiritual volume, reaches out further, so it sort of bypasses the fact that we're all disparate and spread out. I know,
guys.
Feel my vibes.
Feel my
vibes. I know I've spoken about this kind of thing over the years, and I've seen some of the papers that people have written about, you know, the question of, well, how many people do you need to actually change society? And I know it might sound a bit pedantically philosophical, but the reality is you only need one. Because we live in an interconnected world, unless you're an absolute hermit that lives on an island and throws stones at anyone that comes anywhere near you, it only needs one person. From that beginning, an idea can spread. So when you talk about there's not enough of us, in the years ago, I used to agree. I used to think that we had to reach a certain number before we could really sort of achieve anything. Now I don't. Now I focus on the numbers don't matter. Is the information good? If the information's good, it will be carried forward. So the numbers may not happen now. They may happen in the future. They may not happen in my lifetime, but as long as it carries on, it will grow slowly, slowly, slowly. Yeah. And I would rather nurture a slow growing good thing than fixate upon, well, we can't do anything unless there's this many and it's this way and it has to be perfect situation for it to happen.
Well, some things we'd like, you know, for the gym people that kept their gyms open. If the whole
they need numbers.
If the whole high street had done what he did, that's numbers.
Yeah.
People would listen. That's getting attention. When it's just one here, one there. I hear what you're saying, but you know, you do need numbers for some things, Cookie. Because I'm telling you, that whole neighborhood, he had a lot of people coming into the gym, but if the whole area had done it, the police would have just had to fuck off.
Yeah,
they would
exactly.
no foot to stand on.
That's why I said it's
numbers. We do.
It's pedantically philosophical. Yeah, from a pedantic philosophical point of view, every idea begins from one person, and spreads outwards. But I agree with you. In physical reality, in day-to-day reality, it needs numbers of people to turn up at those places. Yeah, like the video coverage that Marty did from Manchester. You know, you compare that to Birmingham and London. In London, there were several thousand people, and you saw how the police reacted and all that silliness. Yeah, Birmingham, there was a few hundred at best. Yeah, which is, I'm glad people turned out, but they just weren't the numbers. Yeah, Manchester, again, there was a few thousand. So it varies in different places, but you can see how, there are numbers of people there when they can be bothered to sort of come together for a reason or a cause or whatever. Yeah, it's just, I think for a lot of people, they're stuck in that mindset They're worried what will happen to them, the consequences for them.
Yeah, the
So
fine.
they're not willing to stand in front of that guy's gym and say, "I'm sorry, officer, but I disagree with you. I want to use this guy's business. Thank you very much. You know, I want to go in his gym and make use of the equipment and whatever and do some training." Not enough people are willing to do that because they're worried about the consequences for themselves. Until, I don't know, I think it's going to get to the stage where people need to be more confronted with the level that it will affect in terms of the numbers of people that will be affected by this shit as it's happening. At the moment, you notice how, I think it was like a couple of months ago now, they stopped reporting the suicide numbers for this year because they knew that kind of information would galvanize people. People would be more willing to come out and protest and stand up and defy the rules, bullshit and whatever, when you show them that kind of data, that kind of statistic, because they're like, what? That isn't a normal year. You know, obviously all these people are taking their own lives because they're so distraught from all this bullshit. Now the so-called cure is obviously statistically provably worse than the illness. So the government stopped telling those numbers. The ONS stopped showing them.
Yeah.
You know, things like that is where I think people need, I know this sounds easy for me to say because I ain't really got fuck all to lose. I don't have my own business. I've not got a family I need to support and stuff like that. So yeah, it's easy for me to say this kind of stuff. But until people get past that point of thinking, well, I might lose my job. It's like, mate, if you allow this to carry on, you're going to lose more than just your job. You're going to lose everything you own because their intention is to make you propertyless, as in you don't own anything. So you're going to lose your job. Your job will be meaningless in that future that they're trying to drag you in. So if you don't say no now, you're going to find it harder to say no next week, and even harder the month after, and almost impossible in 5 years' time. So what are you risking? You know, in a similar fashion to like we're supposedly mentally capable of deciding our own risk assessment in terms of illnesses and viruses and infections and whatever. You know, I'm at a more susceptible level because of my COPD, but I've been going out and not wearing a mask and mixing with people and whatever. I assess the risk of, even if this thing is real, it's no more of a risk to me than the general flu, and I'm aware of that, so I just treat it like that. But people don't seem to be able to equate that risk assessment to a risk assessment in terms of the society they live in and share with each other. Which is more of a danger to you? Allowing these agendas to carry on such that you're going to end up living in a police state where you could just be another one of those statistics, like that poor old granny in the video, where your daughter isn't allowed to come in and look after you and visit you. You just get wheeled off into another room while they wait for you to die. Are you going to wait until then, till you say no? What's the risk assessment in terms of the value of your job at the moment? That kind of thing just makes me think like people have become so inculcated by the system that they've lost all concept of real risk. This is why, like, you know, as we've been doing over the years, encouraging people to go out in nature and reconnecting with things like, well, what do you actually need to live? How much do you need to live? And what is all the extra stuff that you get from this system that we all participate in? All you need to live is water, food, shelter, love.
And you know what?
Those are the only things you need to survive, and all of them you can pretty much provide for yourself, apart from the last one, because obviously that needs more than just you.
It made me think, Cookie, the other day, because I thought we've got enough. We don't have to make anything because we've got enough shit on this planet to last us forever already. You know,
think of all the hundreds of thousands of tins of spam that haven't been eaten yet.
Yeah, or anything, you know, furniture, whatever, you know, clothing, everything. You know, we've got enough.
Statues, we've got plenty of them. They're all over the place. People are complaining they're in the way. This statue makes me feel uncomfortable thoughts. I don't want to see it anymore. Yeah. Right, okay. I think we're near enough at the hour, so I think it's a good time to wrap it up there. Maybe another time we can get a bit more into that sequence of numbers along the bottom and the potential connection to
how many?
1, 2, 3, 4, and the fifth one. It's in the fifth dimension. I know I've talked about this over the years, so I'm wondering when at some point YouTube will call up one of my old videos from years ago and say, "Oh, you're talking naughty stuff." But I've talked about the EMS smog connection, the influence of the frequencies around us, all the stuff like I was ranting about the movements of the planets and how that affects us. And that is exactly that. It may seem minuscule, but the influence of those frequencies in the reality around us affects us psychologically, spiritually, biologically. And this current new technology is crossing that line to influence us biologically and psychologically. So at what point are people going to start saying, okay, we've got enough technology for now. This technology can do great things for us already. Maybe we put it on hold for a bit, Yeah, it's a really simple explanation, but hopefully you know what I mean. I don't have the voice box, or really we're pressing on time a bit as well, so I'm not going to do another roll call through the chat room. I can see a few of the usual suspects in there, the regulars. Thanks for joining in, everyone. And a few new names in there as well. Thanks for tuning in and joining in the chat. Thank you for giving us your attention for a couple of hours. I hope you're at least feeling a bit more uplifted and optimistic, because I really do feel that this is such an immense opportunity to make such a major change in our reality in a good way.
Something as well, Cookie. Can I remind everybody, guys, create something. Yeah, I just want to remind you to create something. We're always thinking on this, doing stuff. If we want to see a different future and create a different future, start to create, just to be in that vibration of creation and change. Just get a bit of clay, make something, create it. Thoughts become things. Get into that mode as well. To hopefully by the 21st, like thoughts become things. Let's all think creatively.
Including song lyrics.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
If you come up with any good song lyrics, write them down somewhere. Record them if you can. Send them to Media Bear and say, hey, I think this would make a great satire song. Please do this one. Yeah, there's been a lot of good stuff like that this year. And I definitely agree. It'd be a good focus of intention that would counteract their efforts to turn it all into entropy, because, creative energy, the opposite of entropy. Anyway, I'll start digressing into stuff about energy again. Thanks for joining in, Jam. It's good to chat with you. And please go and check out her channel. Remember, it's a new channel, and she's been re-uploading videos from the original channel, but of course there's always going to be some missing, isn't there? So keep up with people who appreciate their work and thanks to Peter for joining in.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you, people.
We will be back on Wednesday night on the Reality Chat channel to do the Reality Chat, 8 p.m. GMT. Steve Tagush will be on, as far as I know, he's on Thursday night for the Mystery Show at 8 p.m. GMT. And of course, there's lots of other shows on at the moment. I know I saw Raconteur's news in the chat earlier, I think. I'm not sure if they're doing any shows at the moment. I know people have been ill and stuff, so hopefully they're getting better soon. And don't believe the hype, don't believe all the bullshit, don't believe the fear unless it rhymes with your own reason and your own common sense, as the Buddha says.
Don't believe the hype.
Cheers. Thanks again, folks. I'm going to click the button, and don't forget, you don't have to jump out straight away if you don't want to. Thanks again, folks. got cheese.